In October of 2019, it was announced that To the Stars Academy of Arts and Science would be partnering with the United States Army's Combat Capabilities Development Command to research alleged metamaterials they have obtained from crashed UFOs. They claim these metamaterials display properties that we cannot recreate. These metamaterials have a chain of custody that connects to many people and events throughout UFO history. The fact that the Army is teaming up with a UFO group to research exotic metamaterials claimed to be from UFOs is very interesting. So let's look at these metamaterials and answer the following questions. What is the history of these metamaterials and how did they end up with To the Stars? What exactly is a metamaterial and why is this significant? What properties do they display? And what are the details of the Army's new involvement with To the Stars?
How many have heard about the layered bismuth and magnesium material that Art Bell received in 1996? And
what you have in your hand is bismuth and magnesium. And it is from Roswell. This is ostensibly from the crash at Roswell, New Mexico.
Bits and pieces that are seemingly beyond anything we can create. This one sample is engineered in layers thinner than microns.
Bismuth layers less than a human hair. Magnesium samples about 10 times the size of a human hair. Supposedly picked up in the crash retrieval of an advanced aerospace vehicle.
Do you believe, based on your decade of serving in the U.S. government on this question, that the U.S. government has in its possession any material from one of these aircrafts?
I do, yes.
You think the U.S. government has debris from a UFO in its possession right now?
Unfortunately, Tucker, I really have to be careful of my NDA. I really can't go into a lot of more detail in that.
Okay.
But simply put, yes.
In the days before widespread use of the internet, many people interested in UFOs and other anomalous subject matter got their information from a radio show called Coast to Coast AM. Created in 1988 by Alan Corberth and host Art Bell, it served as a place where fringe subjects could be openly discussed during a time when the mainstream media avoided them. Coast to Coast AM would become the most popular radio show for its time slot. During the year 1996, Art Bell received materials from an anonymous person claiming they were retrieved from crashed UFOs. Over the course of 4 letters, the anonymous sender relayed the following information to Art Bell. His grandfather was a part of a UFO crash retrieval program, and the pieces he sent were from the Roswell UFO crash. He claims his grandfather was at the crash site and helped transport it to Wright-Patterson Airfield in Ohio. His grandfather says the military helped disseminate what science it could understand from UFOs to the private sector, but that most of how these UFOs operated was a mystery. He claims at the crash site they discovered bodies, 2 dead and 1 alive, that was able to communicate telepathically. He says before his grandfather passed in 1977, he sat his entire family down and explained what he had done in the military and presented the pieces he was able to keep from the Roswell crash site. The anonymous listener sent them to Art Bell because of Art's reputation in the UFO community, and he hoped Art would be able to mediate the scientific study of these UFO materials, which received the nickname Art's Parts. Art Bell would pass the materials on to UFO researcher Linda Moulton Howe, who at that time had a weekly segment on Coast to Coast. Linda Moulton Howe first came on the UFO scene in the late 1970s with the release of her documentary A Strange Harvest, which brought the anomalous cattle mutilation phenomena to the attention of many people. For A Strange Harvest, Linda had been in contact with many laboratories to analyze the samples from cattle mutilation cases. Linda first contacted a university professor who did not wish to go public. On June 8, 1996, the professor found that each sample had a silvery shiny side with a rough granular appearance. The other side was a blackish gray. The samples were hard and brittle and could be broken with manual pressure. The shiny side contained 95% magnesium and a small amount of zinc, while the dark side contained a significant amount of bismuth. The professor measured the layers and found that the thin, wavy lines of bismuth varied from 1 to 4 microns wide. A human blood cell is about 5 microns in diameter. The magnesium zinc varied from 100 to 200 microns, about the diameter of a human hair. This would be very difficult to recreate by today's standards, especially the 4-micron wide layer of bismuth. Bismuth is one of the main ingredients in Pepto-Bismol, which is one of the reasons for its name. It is number 82 on the periodic table, and bismuth is one of the few metals that can expand when cooled. In modern use, it is used as a coolant for nuclear power reactors. The professor was unable to recreate the bismuth magnesium in the alternating layers as presented in the sample, or to understand the purpose behind this complexly designed material. Linda then sent the materials to the Director of Material Sciences at MIT, the National Science Foundation, Sandia National Laboratory, and aerospace manufacturers to see if they could make sense of this strange material. Over the following weeks, she learned that none of the scientists had ever heard of bismuth magnesium combined like this. None of them could recreate it, and no one knew what purpose it would serve. Here is a montage of some of the researchers' responses to the anomalous pieces.
I don't have any idea. I've never heard of any such a laminate like that. I don't know where to tell you to go, unless you go to some place like Dow Chemical that makes magnesium.
We don't do anything like that here within the Dow Chemical.
What would that be able to function as?
That's a tough one. There might be some commercial alloys with those characteristics, but I wouldn't be able to see how they would get that discrete layer.
Meaning the,
of the bismuth in there.
Okay, now, from your standpoint of working with exotic metals, what is the problem with sputtering bismuth on magnesium?
Okay, I can't give you a definitive answer. I've never heard of it done.
And I wondered if you could even tell me who works with bismuth in 1 to 2 micron film.
I've never heard of anything like that.
Do you know what this is?
I'll tell you, I haven't the slightest idea.
Soon, she got in touch with Travis Taylor, an electrical engineer and physicist with the Army Redstone in Huntsville, Alabama. He volunteered to do experiments on the bismuth magnesium, but first had to check with his superiors if this was okay. Travis said his superiors had already known who Linda was, and that he would be permitted to perform the experiments as long as he shared his findings with the Army. Linda asked him to check any databases he might have access to see if there was any reference of bismuth magnesium layered at the micron level.
Basically, I've exhausted every resource that I have ever tried to use in the past, from about 1940 to now, and I have found no reference, even in government research, for bismuth magnesium layers. That's one of the things about this material that excites me, is because somebody had to build it, and nobody has reported building it. And it's a very high-tech piece of material, so if they didn't report it, then why did they build it?
Right.
That's the thing we do in science, is we do some research and then we tell everybody about it. And nobody's told anybody about this material.
Around this time, there were developments being made in other fields of science that could lend a clue as to what purpose this material serves. In 1999, 3 years after Art Bell initially received Art's parts, Sir John Pendry of Duke University began to study a new field of science, metamaterials. Broadly speaking, metamaterials are materials that derive their properties not from the properties of their base materials, but from their newly designed, often nanostructures. Their precise shape, geometry, size, orientation, and arrangement gives them their smart properties, capable of manipulating forces like electromagnetic waves, sound waves, and potentially gravity. By blocking, absorbing, enhancing, or bending various types of waves, metamaterials achieve benefits that go beyond what is possible with conventional materials that get their properties from the chemical composition of their base materials alone. To summarize, metamaterials have properties that are derived from the structures of their geometric shapes rather than the chemical composition of their base materials. Sir John Pendry was focused on metamaterials that interact with electromagnetic waves. To further help illustrate this, certain metamaterials bring the idea of a TV antenna down to the nanoscale. Those antennas were designed for radio waves that are centimeters to meters in length. Metamaterials work to create nanoscale antennas that would be able to respond to visible light with wavelengths of 400 to 700 nanometers, or infrared light, where wavelengths are on the order of a micron. By adjusting the geometry and shapes of these antennas individually and in collections, Metamaterials can engineer systems that interact with and manipulate light in entirely new ways, without changing the chemical composition of the antenna. Sir John Pendry was focused on metamaterial development with an emphasis on how they can manipulate visible light and other electromagnetic waves. Electromagnetic waves refer to the waves of electromagnetic field propagating through space, carrying electromagnetic radiant energy. It includes radio waves, microwaves, infrared, visible light, ultraviolet, X-rays, and gamma rays. Sir John Pendry and the Duke University team used metamaterial theory to develop a practical invisibility cloak. The materials of the invisibility cloak are precisely constructed at the nano level to make light waves bend, as opposed to the straight paths light waves take when being reflected or absorbed. By doing this, the object behind the cloak remains invisible to the human eye.
What is it?
With that fictional cloak, Harry isn't just camouflaged, he's invisible.
My body's gone!
How invisible are we talking here? If I walked into a room with a soldier wearing one of these cloaks?
You wouldn't see him at all. He would be completely invisible to you.
This isn't make-believe. The military has seen the so-called quantum stealth technology. It works by bending the light around an object.
The study of metamaterials is still in its infancy, but today some are being used to manipulate sound waves, to absorb radiation and turn it into harmless heat, and to improve antennas. It is important to remember that metamaterials can manipulate more than just electromagnetic waves. Metamaterials can be expensive to produce, but as of right now, the limitations of their potential is unknown, and they will likely play larger roles in society in the years to come. In 2012, Dr. Hal Puthoff theorized that the emerging sciences related to metamaterials could apply to this alleged UFO fragment. Dr. Hal Puthoff earned his PhD in electrical engineering from Stanford University in 1967. He then invented tunable lasers and electron beam devices, for which he holds patents. In 1969, he co-authored with Dr. Richard H. Pantelli the book Fundamentals of Quantum Electronics, published in English, French, Russian, and Chinese. From the late 1970s to the early 1990s, Hal Puthoff also ran the CIA remote viewing program, Project Stargate. Linda offered Hal a sample, and at his laboratory at EarthTech Institute for Advanced Studies in Austin, he tested his hypothesis of whether or not these materials had the potential ability to manipulate electromagnetic waves in previously unknown ways. Hal was unable to observe any anomalous outcomes when exposing the UFO samples to different easily producible electromagnetic waves. Dr. Hal Puthoff suggested that high-frequency testing of the micron-layered bismuth-magnesium metal with sub-wavelength terahertz signals might reveal that the bismuth layers function as a waveguide structure for sub-wavelength terahertz. Terahertz refers to a unit of electromagnetic wave frequency that falls in between infrared and microwave on the electromagnetic scale. Basically, Hal theorized that when exposed to terahertz, the metamaterials in the bismuth-magnesium UFO piece might display unknown properties. For the time being, however, neither Hal Puthoff or Linda Moulton Howe would have access to facilities that could produce the terahertz frequencies needed to test this hypothesis. Now, around this time, Tom DeLonge began forming what would become To the Stars Academy of Arts and Science. To the Stars Academy is a company with the goal of helping the government reveal the complex truth of the UFO phenomena to the public over the coming years. Dr. Hal Puthoff would join this organization focused on UFO disclosure, along with many other respectable people, like Luis Elizondo, who ran the Pentagon UFO Investigation Program, Chris Herndon, former Deputy Assistant to the President and Director of White House Information Technology, Chris Mellon, former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for Intelligence, Steve Justice, retired Program Director for Lockheed Martin Skunk Works, and many others. In late 2017 and early 2018, To the Stars Academy helped release declassified footage of 3 separate UFO encounters had by U.S. Navy fighter jets that are now such a big part of UFO discussion.
No, I took an auto track. Oh, okay.
gosh, dude, this is a fucking drone, bro. There's a whole fleet of them. Look on the ASA. My gosh. They're all going against the wind. The wind's 120 knots from the west. Look at that thing, dude. That's not our LNS though, is it? It's not. That is the LNS, dude. Well, if there's like look at that thing. It's rotating.
Since then, there has been a steady flow of serious mainstream media coverage regarding UFOs. In July of 2018, To the Stars announced the ATOM project. ATOM is an acronym for Acquisition and Data Analysis of Materials. According to the Stars, the ATOM project is an academic research program focused on exotic materials for technology innovation and focuses on the collection and scientific evaluation of material samples obtained through reliable reports of advanced aerospace vehicles of unknown origin. The ATOM project began to collect alleged pieces left by UFOs from various sources with the hope of scientifically analyzing them, and in July of 2019, To the Stars would purchase the famous Art's parts from Linda Moulton Howe. The ATOM project is headed by Steve Justice, the former program director for Lockheed Martin Skunk Works. This position within Lockheed Martin is very prestigious, as they are one of the top defense contractors for the U.S. military, having created the U-2 reconnaissance plane, the Lockheed SR-71 Blackbird, the Lockheed Martin F-22 Raptor, and many others. The fact that the man who ran Lockheed Martin Skunk Works is putting his reputation on the line by running this UFO material research program is pretty significant in my opinion. Steve Justice would say, "The structure and composition of these materials are not from any known existing military or commercial application. They've been collected from sources with varying levels of chains of custody, documentation, so we are focusing on verifiable facts and working to develop independent scientific proof of the material's properties and attributes. In some cases, the manufacturing technology required to fabricate the materials is only now becoming available, but the material has been in documented possession since the mid-1990s. We currently have multiple material samples being analyzed by contracted laboratories and have plans to extend the scope of this study." Dr. Gary Nolan is the Rackford and Carlota A. Harris Professor in the Department of Microbiology and Immunology at Stanford University School of Medicine and is on the To the Stars Scientific Advisory Board. He claims that the key to understanding the foreign nature of these materials is by looking at their isotopic ratios. He says, "People interested in understanding the reality of what's going on with these materials need to understand this. There are 253 isotopes that do not undergo radioactive decay in any reasonable time frame. This page has a table of nuclides where the black boxes denote the 253 stable isotopes. Some elements, such as aluminum, have only one stable isotope. Titanium and nickel each have 5 stable isotopes. Tin has 8. There are natural ratios of these isotopes that are largely governed by stellar decay processes, centrifugal forces during planetary formation, and proximity to gamma and other radiation sources. These ratios vary only slightly, the maximum a couple of a percentile, across a solar system. Significant variations in isotope ratios imply either engineering of the ratios for a purpose which is extremely expensive, or that the materials came from somewhere that does not play by our rules."
Just a few weeks ago, the Navy admitted for the first time that several UFO videos were real, meaning they show actual area phenomenon that so far the Pentagon cannot explain. Now, a UFO investigations group says they have found materials that could potentially be physical evidence of UFOs.
And ultimately, we're in the process of analyzing this material at 3 different levels. We're looking at its physical properties, its chemical, or if you will, molecular properties, and then ultimately its atomic properties. And it's really at that point we'll be able to make some sort of definitive conclusion, keeping in mind that we still have to follow the scientific process and methods.
Why do you think this material might be connected to UFOs?
Well, without getting into a lot of detail right now, because it's frankly, it's too speculative for me at this point to say why I think something. At the end of the day, it's going to be what the analysis tells us. And if you have, for example, interesting isotopic ratios that are not normally found, let's say, on this planet, then you have to scratch your head and either A, it's been engineered that way, or B, it came from somewhere else. And ultimately, that's what we're trying to find out.
So these are materials brought to you by people who say this is at the site of a UFO incident or a crash?
In some cases, yes. Again, unfortunately, I can't elaborate too much with some of these individuals. We do have non-disclosure agreements, but it's from various sources, both private and governmental.
In October of 2018, it was announced that To the Stars Academy of Arts and Science would join a Cooperative Research and Development Agreement, or CRADA, with the United States Army's Combat Capabilities Development Command Ground Vehicle Systems Center. The CCDC Ground Vehicle Systems Center is one of 8 science and technology domains within the United States Army, which has the mission to ensure decisive overmatch for unified land operations to empower the Army, the Joint Warfighter, and the nation. On October 21, 2019, the CRADA contract between the Army and To the Stars was released by John Greenwald of the Black Vault. This contract details the legal workings of this agreement and names Lou Elizondo as the chief liaison between the two groups. The contract also states that there will be annual reviews held through 2023. To the Stars is providing the metamaterials, and the Army is providing access to its facilities, resources, and personnel, valuing $750,000. The government is interested in studying inertial mass reduction, mechanical and structural metamaterials, electromagnetic metamaterial waveguides, quantum physics, active camouflage, quantum communications, and beamed energy propulsion. Page 20 of the CRADA contract details the project description and objectives. The project description is as follows. To the Stars Academy of Arts and Science is a company with material and technology innovations that offer capability advancements for Army ground vehicles. These technology innovations have been acquired, designed, and produced by the Collaborator, leveraging advancements in metamaterials and quantum physics to push performance gains. The Collaborator will share their innovations with the government, who will use its laboratories and resources to characterize the technologies and determine if they have appropriate applications on ground vehicles. The project objectives are as follows. CRADA objective. The Collaborator has access to advanced material solutions. The government would like to assess, test, and characterize the products from the Collaborator at government facilities to compare the capabilities of these advancements to known commodities, understand what facilities would be required to reproduce the advancements, and determine their applications for ground vehicle platforms. Benefit to the government. If the government can verify material solutions claims by the Collaborator, then significant advancements can be made in the capabilities of Army ground vehicle platforms in terms of security, force protection, and weight reduction. Benefit to Collaborator. The collaboration described within this document enables the Collaborator to understand the performance of their material innovations in Army ground vehicles environments, and benchmark that capability against existing technology capabilities. This CRADA will benefit the Collaborator by providing guidance recommendation, additional data, and results collected from government testing. Dr. Joseph Cannon, Deputy Product Manager of Science and Technology in the Vehicle Protection Systems Division of the GVSC, stated in the press release that our partnership with TTSA serves as an exciting, non-traditional source for novel materials and transformational technologies to enhance our military ground systems capabilities. At the Army's Ground Vehicle Systems Center, we look forward to this partnership and the potential technological innovations forthcoming. A link to the entire CRADA contract is in the description. To the Stars Academy of Arts and Science is one of the weirdest companies to ever exist, and there are so many things to be said about this latest development with the Army. To the Stars now has access to U.S. military laboratories and funds to fully test the capabilities of the alleged metamaterials. It should be noted that the U.S. military contracts hundreds of CRADAs every year with various companies, however many remain classified, so the fact that this one is public was a deliberate decision made by both parties. The language of the CRADA contract and the fact that this agreement is happening seems as if the Army is acknowledging these materials display anomalous properties. This partnership is even weirder when you consider, on occasion, Tom has made extraordinary claims about these metamaterials, like when exposed to terahertz radiation, the pieces will lose mass and float. Another strange aspect of this is that the Army knows the claimed history of some of these materials that allegedly came from the Roswell UFO crash. If the Army is willing to even entertain the idea of studying materials from the Roswell UFO crash, is that them, in a way, acknowledging that the Roswell UFO crash did happen? Now, that is assuming that the anonymous sender was telling the truth. I find it curious that the metamaterials in question were sent to Art Bell shortly before the scientific study of metamaterials by Sir John Pendry at Duke University began. Perhaps whoever, or whatever, sent the metamaterials knew that humans were nearing a point to understand them. Given this latest development, in the context of all the recent developments regarding UFOs, I don't know what to make of the situation. For the time being, it seems as if To the Stars is a way for the government to publicly relearn things it has known for decades, perhaps as a way to distance themselves from any horrible acts committed in the name of the cover-up. Now, this is all just speculation, and we truly won't know until the coming years. Hopefully, this new research agreement with the Army will help get to the bottom of the mystery of these strange materials.